Welcome back to another podcast episode, everyone. I've got a really exciting guest for you guys today. And for those of you just joining, we're E.N.G Media, and I've got Ali with me, founder and CEO of Workflow, which specializes in automating business process operations through integrating AI solutions. So, Ali, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I'm excited to dive into everything you're working on now, but also your background as well.
Thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm excited, and I saw some of the work you do. It's very great because you bring experts to speak together about what's happening in AI and around the world. It's great.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. It's a newfound passion for me talking about technology and a lot of the impact that's being made throughout a multitude of different sectors. But I'm really excited to talk to you specifically. And, a large part of that is because of your background as well. Like, I know you spent a lot of time in the defense space. You've done some work at OpenAI as well, which is really, really interesting. And then now you've recently founded your company. And so maybe we can just start by kind of the beginning. Like, what's really led you up to the point to where you're at now?
It's a great question. Because when I look at my journey, people find me doing something different every few years. And I think this is how I collect that expertise. If I look at my journey over the past 10 years, I started my PhD in early 2016, and we did some work with AI. Image processing. And over 5 years, I was applying AI or machine learning in mechanical engineering in research context. And then I leave the industry. I have a mechanical engineering degree. What I'm going to do with it? I mean, you can go to academia, you can teach. I wanted to go to the defense industry because I know there is a lot to learn. And, especially in the US, we do maybe most of the advanced technology you'll see here in the US.
Mm,
And as a mechanical engineer, I wanted to apply everything I learned into defense. And it happened, the company that I worked with, we did
mm,
a lot of predictive analytics and
mm.
AI, which we deployed on the Navy ships. And then, yeah, so I took that, the whole research I got in AI, now I was able to apply it on the field on ships, and that was a very great experience. And
Yeah.
then late 20 GPT came. Even the company I worked for, we started playing with ChatGPT.
Oh, nice.
I left the company. I am a very technical person, so I helped
Mm,
with the technical improvements. If you speak to ChatGPT now, it's a lot of training that we did on its STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics reasoning, on
oh,
its
wow.
coding capabilities, on its deep research agent, the way you execute. You're just, replicating a human or an expert doing research. So
Yeah.
that is everything. And, by maybe mid 20 last year, I was, okay, now it's time to build my own because I
Nice.
have good experience in different sides of AI, and it's, about building team. I believe that I can take, all this knowledge, but with the right team, you can take it to the next level, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. And I appreciate you sharing more about your background. For me, I think it's really interesting that you were doing work with machine learning and AI all the way back in 2016 up to 2020. You were kind of early on. You got to see what some of the capabilities were with predictive analytics. And I think that that's an interesting journey as well. And then you go over to OpenAI and you're training some of the AI models that we're kind of using today. So that's really, really interesting. And you got kind of like an early view into, generative AI specifically and everything that's come after 2021, which is super interesting to me. And so now at Workflow, you guys are basically helping companies optimize their business operations. Is that really your guys' main core area of focus?
That's what we do. We work with businesses from engineering, even in finance. We help
Oh, nice.
people in academia. And when we say optimizing operations, we're not just doing regular AI work. It's digging deep down into the technical problems and try to find what AI can do to automate. Every
Yeah.
time, maybe when we prepare for the show, I told you about everything that we build has a human in the loop point because, I will never replace a human. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to help them, give them tools,
Yeah.
and it starts with a conversation.
I love that. And I love that because in one of my previous roles before I started my company, I was a credit analysis at a bank, essentially an auto financing bank. I won't mention the name specifically, but a lot of what I was doing was manual processes throughout my day to day. And, back then, nobody was leveraging AI. I worked for a larger company, I would say. And so those are always the type that are kind of slow to adopt those types of things. But it sounds like you really specialize in machine learning specifically. So, when it comes to the financial services sector, are you basically helping these banks and other institutions come up with predictive solutions to maybe help them mitigate some of the risks that they apply to like the loans that they give to certain types of their customers? And then also kind of, or I guess I can help you or you can help me fill in the gaps. Like, could you share any specific use cases on some of the projects that you've worked on recently without mentioning any company names, but just what problems you were really looking to solve?
Definitely. I'll put it into the context. I spent years in the defense and predictive analytics, and we can reflect on finance because I consult with people in finance now.
Oh, nice.
What you're doing here, with machine learning, every time you're trying to understand or make the best use of data.
Mm.
So in predictive analytics, you try to collect data from sensors or data acquisition systems, and you try to pass this into equations, as if you are a mechanical engineer solving a lot of equations so to understand how this is doing, how my system is operating. And why am I doing this? Because let's say you purchase a car and they tell you
Mhm.
every 10,000 miles you have to do blah, blah, blah. Okay. It's the same thing. We build machines, these machines degrade. In predictive analytics, we use these sensors and the data that comes from these sensors to understand how the machine is performing now and when it's going to break down, because that
Yeah.
helps you to optimize operations. You see, it's not one problem that you're solving. I'm
Mhm.
trying to optimize my operations. The Navy fleets that we helped, they need to keep running. How do you ensure that you have continuous operation, knowing how your equipment is doing? The only way to do that is to acquire knowledge that is the sensor I'm telling you about. In finance, you
Mhm.
need to know what people are talking about, what their intentions are, to know how investors are going to move. And
Exactly.
just reading and understanding that sentiment help you shape investment decisions and so on. So
Yeah.
it's a whole, think of it as a supply chain. I took one course in the past about systems thinking,
Uh-huh.
and everything affects each other. When we work with sensors shape how you do your machine learning. So it is a lot of technical, and that's why we talk about being subject matter expertise when you build AI applications. Because people think, oh, I can build a whole software stack. I can replace Salesforce
Mhm.
with just ChatGPT $20 account. That's not the case because there is a lot of expertise that goes into the software. And
Yeah.
sometimes you have teams of 50, 100 people building to solve one problem. AI is accelerating that, and everybody see it.
100%. Yeah. And I love your guys' approach that you take. You make more of a human centric approach, I guess, into a lot of the projects that you're working on specifically. And I think that that's important because, especially in the financial services industry, the workflows are fairly complex. And I think it takes a lot of team members in order to solve some of the problems. But seems like you guys are going at it for more of like a holistic approach to know kind of what happens from when you're leveraging, let's just say, predictive analytics for a specific system. You want to know what else is that affecting around it and how does that help solve like the actual problem overall. So I think that that's interesting as well. And a big theme that comes up on our podcast with some of our guests is the hesitancy around folks in different sectors when it comes to adopting AI specifically. So, when you go and consult with a financial services company, or even if you're doing anything in the defense space, do you get any kind of pushback from some of the folks that you're talking to? In when you mentioned that you're working with AI and you're working with machine learning specifically, are there any misconceptions like they think that you're trying to bring them a tool that's supposed to replace them? Or I guess how do you bridge that gap of understanding with some of the companies that you talk with?
That's a great point. In finance, when you look at the type of data you're dealing with, one time I worked with a business, there are social securities in the Excel sheets, and that's
Yep.
not no joke, right? So once you understand the type of data and why they're sensitive about their data, because you cannot, you'll be sued if
You're right.
this kind of information is leaked. So you try to design this application or the tools to help them and The way to do that is maybe you speak to the CEO. The CEO,
Mhm.
oh, I want to do this one, two, three. They think AI can solve the entire, they can solve everything.
Right.
But when you speak to the engineer or the accountant who's really using your tool, okay, because you need adoption. If
Mm.
you pass them a tool that nobody is going to use, in 2 months they will tell you no, thank you. So what we do, we bring some of these experts to the meeting and to the discussion and understand the pain points and what problems they need to be involved in and what pieces that, hey, okay, maybe I'm fine if I pass this to the AI. This is something that we discuss early on. Cost is something we discuss early on. So this kind of conversations, you see businesses in finance. First of all, it's security issues. And
Mhm.
a lot of small businesses, they are hesitant because they are afraid to be replaced.
Yeah,
Or maybe this big organization is going to take my data and build this AI model. That's not the case because, you have to adapt AI at some point because people are asking for it. How are you doing or how are you using AI in your enterprise? At the same time, it will bring your cost down if you know how to implement it. And
absolutely.
how to implement it, I told you a lot of the conversations that we have is
Yeah.
how to have a human in the loop. One tool that we're building, we have a physician who approves whatever data that we parse with AI before
Oh,
it
well.
goes to the medical record system. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of approvals. Sometimes you can't just say, okay, it's done by AI. It has to be approved by a human. Just to give you context, that is in finance, that is in healthcare. You see it in legal, in law firms, but in engineering, sometimes simple supervision. If you build around the engineer, you can simply get it done.
100%. And I think not only in those spaces specifically, but it's the same goes for marketing and sales. I think having human in the loop in a lot of the AI powered marketing and sales workflows is super important. So that way you can make sure you're checking the data, you're checking the messaging that's going out before anything is kind of sent out from that perspective. And another key question that I had for you, Ali, is I'm sure when you go and you're consulting with these different types of companies in financial services and in healthcare specifically, you probably have to build trust and credibility early on with these types of businesses. And so, have you learned any key lessons that could be valuable to our audience of technical based founders when it comes to the way that maybe you structure pilots or how you kind of shorten that gap from time to value and some of the companies that you're working with? You mentioned you bring in subject matter experts into the meetings with other key decision makers so that way you can understand exactly what problems that you're looking to solve. But, do you have any unique strategies or approaches in how you're deploying pilots to kind of build trust and credibility early on with some of the companies that you're working with?
A great question. If I split my services into low tickets versus high tickets or short commitments versus longer commitments. For low commitments, we're speaking or I'm consulting you for an hour.
Mm.
I have to do a lot of research, make sure I know what I'm talking about
Yeah.
because sometimes investors make decisions based on what I say. So you need to make sure that you're explaining the technology and how it interacts, hardware, software, legal, compliance, all
Uh,
of the pieces. Okay, that's in short-term consulting. But if you are building an AI application or a tool for a client, they will not think 100%. Nobody will give you their data.
right.
They will give you a sample, maybe a screenshot. They will give you, just drops of data.
Yeah.
And you have to earn that trust. And that is by shipping features they ask for. You need to listen to them. You're saying that you build AI. And
Mhm.
that is something. Why do you think I started my company? Because the companies I worked for, they built AI software. It's very intelligent, but the way they built it was very slow. And what I'm trying to now, we have the tools to speed that up. Okay. It's just to have that conversation. Now, back to data, they'll give
Mhm.
you data very slowly because they don't trust you with their data yet. And you have to ship features. At one point, I actually shipped a software for someone who paid me nothing, just to show that, hey, I know what this software can help you with. And you can deploy it safe, you can get that software where they can try it.
Uh,
And that will give you two things. First of all, they will pay for your software and they will give you the data to improve it. And
mm.
this is very important.
Yeah.
In every application that we build, if they're not paying, why pay it? Why bother, right? And if you don't have data, it becomes very hard. You
Yeah.
can rely on GPT and Gemini and all of these sophisticated models. But if you're trying to solve a specific business use case,
Yeah.
you have to bring their people and their knowledge and try to fine tune it.
100%. Yeah. And I love that approach. I think I couldn't have said it better myself. And, kind of shifting gears here in the podcast, one thing that I wanted to cover was like you, I think that investors and clients, a lot of the times they'll make decisions emotionally about the founders and how much they actually like and can trust the the key decision makers from your aspect. And so, I guess what are some maybe obstacles that you've had to overcome early on as a startup founder? Like I know that you run marathons, you've gotten a lot of success up to this point in your professional career, but I know that it probably hasn't been easy in starting your company. Like have there been any key obstacles that have really shaped like where you are today that you've had to find a way to overcome and kind of fight through as somebody who founded a startup in order to be able to better serve your customers today?
I started, when I started my business, I joined accelerators. And like
Nice.
any founder, like, hey, how can I speed this up? How can I take it to the next stage? You learn a lot of things, and that's great. But sometimes you have to just do what investors ask you to do to get their money. And the case for me, I had a vision. I'm not a fresh graduate, I spent some years in the industry.
Mhm.
So I know what I needed to, even it was a broad vision and it was hard to get some investors to say yes.
Mm.
But once you show, like, first, you have to earn that reputation that you know what you're doing. And you need to showcase. Sometimes I built AI applications on
Mhm.
my own expense to show that this is
Yeah.
going to work. Okay. And this is not just a chat GPT $20 account again. This got me, into a lot of debate with investors.
Mhm.
But now, once you showcase and you show value, and it's not just building software or, hey, I'm using AI just to get the traction. It's showing value. It's doing this,
Yeah.
because you have to reach to the largest audience you can, and then investors will reach out. And this is happening now. Earlier, I used to reach out to people,
Uh-huh.
and now it's in reverse. People are reaching out because I'm doing what I believed in.
Yeah.
I have this where I do short-term consulting, and using that short-term consulting, I'm
Mhm.
building the intelligence for my long-term vision, where I build
Exactly.
specific human-centric AI applications. And so far, I'm in it's Q4, as I said, and I think I consider it success
Yeah.
because we grew organically. We made a lot of sales through
Mhm.
our short-term consulting and helped us power our R&D for the other applications we're building.
I think it's so important that you had domain expertise before you started the work that you're doing with AI, specifically. And then also you've came out of your own pocket to build your own software solutions and to show the actual use cases of AI before, going and looking to deploy that and take money from other businesses. And so I think that collecting that data from your end users and doing a lot of consulting that you have, those insights are invaluable. People ask me all the time, how do I monetize the podcast specifically? And like you said, if you're not getting in front of people and talking to them and finding out the context that's needed in order to actually drive a measurable, successful outcome for somebody, then at the end of the day, you're just building a tool or you're just building something that might not be validated just yet. So I love that you've taken your consultative approach and you found a way to monetize that, but then also you're taking those insights and building towards your more long-term vision of what you're looking to do at workflow specifically. So I think that's really interesting. And I love that you brought up the fact that you've been a part of accelerators to kind of accelerate the speed at which you move. I've done the same thing as well. I worked in the marketing space. I had went to college, but you don't know what you don't know in a new space. And so the more that I can go and talk to our potential customers and the more that I can talk to experts in my field specifically, the faster that I can get to the outcomes that I want. And so I always recommend people look for different types of resources and be as resourceful as you possibly can to kind of speed up the overall process of what you're looking to accomplish. And so, it's interesting to me that you've been able to get the growth that you have early on. Do you have any new initiatives that you're looking to roll out maybe in early 2026? Like, are you guys raising any kind of capital? Are you doing anything new with your technology that maybe we can highlight on this podcast?
Yeah. If you are a startup and you don't have much to show, people will give you very low valuations. And that is something I avoided. By the way, I'm a business student. So
Mhm.
I know how to get higher valuations for my business. And that's part of the trick. I try to accelerate the process. And once you can show more, you can
Right.
ask for more and keep ownership of your business. Because, it's an
Absolutely.
idea that I believe in and I do want to keep working on it for years later. Back to the point. Now, you can make a lot of progress with your people, but if you want to scale to a next level, you need definitely investors. We have conversations with people. I started opening up a little bit because
Um,
now you have different projects. You can hire people and you learn, along the way,
right.
hiring, firing, building applications. How long is it going to take you? How much should you pay your people? This is something in a startup life you
Mhm.
learn as you go.
Yeah.
Okay. And now you can argue with investors why this vision that I tried to pitch last year and
Mhm.
people told me, we'll take 50% of your company. Why would you take 50% if I'm telling you that I can get customers for $0? You can
Right.
get customers for $0 if you do it the right way.
Yep.
So back to initiatives, we will be, like getting some investing. Or we had conversations with investors, and we'll start our round later or by the end of this year. And on the pilots or the projects, we are kind of standardizing some of the products that we built
Yeah.
so we can accelerate to market. Now let's assume you work in finance and you have a problem. Instead of giving you the software in 2 months, now we have offerings to give you that software literally in a couple of days.
Oh, wow.
We're asking the kind of requirements. So it is not off the shelf solution, it's kind of customized, but that is something we built over this year. One thing that we learned from over this year, sometimes data is not available. So now we acquired more data to build the applications, even, integrating hardware and software. We kind of focused on software in the beginning,
Mhm.
but I am telling you, you need data. And to get data, sometimes you rely on sensors, microphones, cameras. This
Yeah.
is data. So to do that, we are looking into buying our own hardware and build software on top of it.
Oh, well.
I'll give you an example, maybe an AI enabled sensor that can do analytics inside the sensor module instead
Mhm.
of sending to the cloud. So all of these ideas are still in R&D, but
Yeah.
we're pitching and seeking fund for them.
100%. Yeah. No, it sounds like you guys are up to some super exciting things over the next year or so. And you mentioned that you have a really talented team. Like I know that you're not alone in your mission at Workflow and what you guys are looking to accomplish. And so, is there anybody on your team that maybe we can highlight on this podcast here that's really helped you drive what you guys are doing forward?
Start with
Yeah.
I mean, because she supported me throughout this year. I get busy, and as a startup founder, it is very rough.
Mhm.
And when investors didn't give me the money, my wife supported me, so I have to
Wow.
thank her for that. Yeah, and sometimes it's not just the financial support. You have to make use of their knowledge. There is a lot of money in healthcare AI, and my
Mhm.
wife is a physician; she's a doctor,
Uh-huh.
and so I kind of use her knowledge to build some of
Nice.
the healthcare AI applications. So that's a thank you for, first of all, my wife. And I have a lot of engineers and talent in my own country in Jordan. So I want to
Yeah.
say thanks to them. And for my partners here in the US, they are really, they're not working for me, they're working with me. And this
Yeah.
is how, because, in startup life, I cannot hire 100 people. I
Mhm.
try to hire talent where I know how to manage them and supervise them. And in the US, trust me, the way to scale is through partnerships. You and I talking in a podcast,
Yeah.
you reaching out in a conference. So this is, and I have few partners in the US. They're awesome, and we're growing together. That's
Very,
how.
very awesome. I love that you started it off with your wife. I think as founders, our significant others play a big part in allowing us to stay focused on the overall mission and the vision. And in your case, you were actually able to leverage her domain expertise specifically. So you really lucked out from my perspective. I think that's awesome. But yeah, without a solid significant other, and not to say you can't do it alone, but I think they really enable you to kind of accelerate the speed at which you're able to do things and focus on what's most important in the business. And so that's awesome, and the fact that you've been able to leverage engineering teams from your home country as well as your partners out here in the US, I could totally see why investors are reaching out to you and they're interested in your vision and what you're looking to accomplish. And really, just to drive home the point of the value that workflow is bringing to the market, from last year to this year, is there maybe one major thing that you would want investors to know that really differentiates you maybe from some of your competitors or other folks that are looking to deploy AI in some of the sectors that you're working in? Would you say that it's the insights that you've collected and the consulting that you've done and the projects that you work on that really validate what you guys are doing? Or would you say that maybe you guys have another lever that sets you apart maybe from others in the space?
It's a lot of interactions, paid and non-paid.
Yeah.
Sometimes to acquire knowledge, you have to just, do it for free.
Yep.
This is we learned sometimes we paid out of pocket to acquire that knowledge. And one thing that we are different, I try to make use of my connections. If I know somebody who has a business
Mhm.
and I know their data is valuable, that you can build something with it. You try to make a partnership,
Yeah.
data for AI. Okay. And this kind of deals teach you a lot. Okay.
Mhm.
Because I told you, you earn that trust and now you have that scale. Instead of, the first conversation, instead of, hey, give me your data,
Right.
you ask for and you speed up. Instead of getting your data to build the application over 6 months, now you can get it over 1 month or maybe
Exactly.
2 weeks. Okay. So this is something that we learned. And now our offerings are actually reflecting that. If
Yeah.
you give us your data, well, then we can actually stick to the timelines we talk about. So this is back to investors. I mean, I still believe in my idea, and to scale it, I'm definitely looking to work with investors who have interest in building AI applications with human in the loop. This
Yeah.
is what we do. I'm not replacing any human supervision. One thing that I just want to mention here, people think that we are replacing humans with AI. That's not the case because, you keep building and as these models improve, we are improving with it. When I started building one of these projects, we couldn't do or solve one of the tasks because of model deficiency. Over few months, the models improved. Now we can fully deploy the software. So it's a whole technology moving together.
Yeah. You gotta
So
gotta blend people with the technology and the process overall to really get that successful result. It's the same thing in our business as well. We're not afraid of learning how AI can enable us better to deliver the services that we provide because especially in a service-based business, I think in the next 2 to 3 years, you can get left behind if you're not learning how to keep up with speed, with some of the technology that maybe your competitors are leveraging and that your customers want to have a better result in the work that you're doing with them. And I love that you mentioned value-driven strategic partnerships. I think that's one thing that even though I've studied business, I went to school for business, and early on in my business, I thought I would know. You get to see different value propositions that you can make to folks that are in your industry to build trust, to build credibility because everybody talks. But then also to you guys can both get to your outcome a lot faster through finding ways that you can kind of work together. And so, yeah, I think strategic partnerships has been a huge theme for a lot of the guests that we've spoken with on the podcast in helping them get to their overall result, I guess, a lot faster. And so, Ali, for anybody that's in the audience that wants to learn more about what you're doing at Workflow, outside of your guys' website, would you say that LinkedIn is the best social media platform for folks to go and connect?
yeah. A lot of, especially in the US, a lot of business, we are startups, which mean, and the US is a huge market, by the way.
Mhm.
And if you're doing business on the East Coast or West Coast or even in the Midwest, LinkedIn is very powerful for businesses in the US.
Yeah.
And, I spent money on meta ads. Businesses are not on Facebook. It
No.
depends on what you do. Just know where your market is. But small businesses, mid-sized businesses, a lot of folks this year migrated to LinkedIn for business because
Mhm.
you don't do business over Facebook or Instagram. And I got a lot of business through LinkedIn. This is not
Yeah.
a secret. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I think when it comes to B2B, SaaS, technology, and even data as well, LinkedIn is where a lot of business is done. And I think before a couple of years ago, it wasn't really viewed as an ROI generating channel for businesses. Maybe SEO and Google Ads worked a lot better in the SaaS space specifically, but as you mentioned, a lot of people have migrated over to LinkedIn, including myself. And so it's interesting to see how a lot of founders are doing, different types of strategies around storytelling and just building kind of in real time and out in the public on LinkedIn and how that's helping them grow their business significantly. I think it's a huge leg up for small to medium sized businesses to leverage over maybe enterprises that are slow to post and kind of document their story in real time. So I appreciate you kind of contributing to that overall thesis. But Ali, before we wrap up here, is there anything that you want to leave the audience with, whether that's my audience or your audience as well, in the way that they think about what you're doing at workflow?
What we're doing is kind of broad, and I'm trying my best to narrow it.
Mhm.
Okay. But there's a lot of things that you learn because what you see now, especially talking about AI business, right? In AI, if you are building something that you cannot compete with OpenAI, you cannot compete with Google. So try to build something for humans because,
Mhm.
we built that technology. And that's what I'm doing. It starts with a conversation again with workflow. A lot of business that we succeeded in was through connections and through conversations. And we didn't even talk about which model to use. So try to build for humans and have them involved in everything that you build. And do not seek, the hype, especially when you're building AI, because a lot of AI frontiers are able and they're capable of building tools that can get you out of market tomorrow. So
Yeah.
try to build, and I'm sure that the human-centric AI will have a huge market
Yeah.
because, we're not gonna just sit down and do nothing. I mean, we're using AI for our benefit.
I think people are just getting increasingly busier, and they've all have problems to solve, but they don't want to use 50 different tools to solve them. So what you're saying is get out there, have conversations with the people that you're looking to serve, identify problems, and then reverse engineer how to solve them with the right technology. And I absolutely love that approach. I think it's been documented time over time to be successful. And so I'm definitely going to be keeping up with everything that you guys are working on at Workflow. And for folks in the audience that might have questions for Ali, whether that's specifically in the industries that you're working in or just in general, feel free to comment on this video if you see it on YouTube or comment if you see our posts on LinkedIn. And I'd love to bring Ali back on the podcast, maybe in the next couple of months, just to talk about some of the new initiatives that you guys are launching and really just to kind of catch up and to some of the work that you're doing as well.
Thank you, Tyson. I enjoyed talking to you, and I hope, this conversation drives insights for people. Maybe next year I'll tell you about how went with investors,
Yeah.
and we can speak about a different topic in AI.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that sounds like a plan. But as I said, guys, let us know if you do have any questions and we'd love to answer them for you. But really, other than that, we'll catch you in the next video.